Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Live Beyond Average podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Miller, dropping in really off the cuff this morning. I wanted to talk about this conversation that I had with a younger gentleman this past week, and it's a conversation that ironically I've had with myself over the years as I was going into new business ventures, new ideas, and really chasing my dreams. It's a very important thing, and it really goes along with the theme we've been in since restarting this podcast. We've really been on this theme of identity since re-kicking the podcast up late last year, and how much knowing who we really are changes everything. And so ironically, so much of what we talk about goes back to the root. It's always going back to the root and pointing back that way. And so this conversation I had with this kid last week, I was at the gym and I was training, and I was talking to this younger kid that I conversate with on Tuesdays and Thursdays quite a bit. And he was telling me about some of these ideas that he had for a side business venture that he was going to go do. And he really had everything worked out on how to do it. He knows how to work hard. He knows all the things. The last piece was, boom, going and doing it. But then he posed this question to me, and I laughed inside because I have asked myself the same thing and I've had to answer it. And this is the question. So he goes, my struggle is, how do I really stand out in this business if I try to do this? How do I stand out? It seems like it's really saturated, that there's so many other people doing it as well. And at the end of the day, that's going to be true in nearly all markets, all business ideas that you have, is there's already going to be people doing something very similar in most cases. So what's the answer to that? How do you start something that, hey, I really have a passion for this, I see an opportunity for myself in this. How do I actually step into it? And the answer is, how do you stand out? The difference is you. You are the difference. I've had to answer this question for myself going into fitness, going into when I ran a supplement company, all of these things. How am I different? How is my company different? How do I stand out compared to other people? And at the end of the day, most businesses, most services are going to offer a very similar product. They're going to offer very similar knowledge, especially when it comes to health and fitness. There's going to be a lot of repetitive knowledge and things like that. And so how do I stand out? How am I different? The true answer is, I am the difference maker in that. That there's people who need me in order to have success in their health and fitness. They need me as their coach. They need my style of coaching. They need my personality to help them. They need my encouragement to help get them to the next level. And so I really wanted to take this opportunity, obviously to remind myself, but also then to speak into you as you're going forward, that you are the differentiator when it comes to standing out in whatever it is that you are going to do. That you being authentically you and giving your authentic self to the world then speaks to those people who are vibrating at the same frequency as you, that you're going to help them step into their further success. You're going to help them be authentically them. And that brings success to you. It brings success to them. And it just continues on your business or your dream or your venture. And it also gives them this freedom to do the same thing and be free to be them. And so as you're just moving into these questions in life, is like, how is this making a difference? How even you can apply this to your job. You're working a traditional career path. Is that, how am I making a difference? I think everybody's probably asked themselves that question. How am I making a difference in there? Even somebody who's working a cashier, whatever that is that you actually being you in that arena brings a joy and bring a greater impact to everybody around you when you start actually being yourself, and realizing that you are the differentiator in whatever it is that you're doing. It's not an arrogant belief. It can sound very like, oh, well, I have this big belief on myself. It's actually the opposite of that, because it's pointing towards the root, which is you understanding how God made you and you falling in alignment with how you were made, with all of the strengths, with all of the purpose on how you were made, you're getting in agreement with that and following through on who you really are. That serves the world. That brings you joy unspeakable into your heart. It brings you peace and rest that you can't explain. And so those are the pieces that, as we're continuing to grow in our identity, we have to fall in this alignment with, and we have to just dare to believe some of these quote unquote crazy thoughts or feelings that we're being led into. And moving away from some of these traditional thoughts that thinking that is this arrogant peace, when it's actually very much the opposite. It's a very humble thing to realize how you were made and accepting how to start walking in to who you actually are. Who God says you are is much more humble than you falsifying and trying to be something that you're not, because that's what somebody says you're supposed to be. I hope this encourages you today, guys. A really off-the-cuff story from last week that I wanted to share with you is a wonderful reminder for me, and I knew it would be for you too. Share this with somebody else if it's serving you today, and I hope you have a great rest of your week.